There's no blame. But I'm calling you on this. I'm calling you on where is your spine? Where is your accountability? Like, where is your choice and where is your truth and honesty? Because truth is love. And it's okay that you are indecisive, but say it loud. Hey, I'm indecisive and I am aware. I take 50% responsibility for causing pain by not making choice. And I want to say it because I want to own it. And that for me is to have spine. Even if you're not making the choice, but to bring it, to own it. And so I sat with that for a while. And I also wrote him and then I realized that actually, yeah, it's great. I think it's important to call the man on this piece and to say, okay, good, you are in this process. And thank you for allowing, thank you for making yourself transparent where you are at. So from here, I can make a choice. Do I want this or do I don't want this? But
So what about your spine? Why do you
yes,
think you went over your boundary?
yeah, so I feel that is the piece. And the piece is I've been really sitting with that, and it unleashed a deep process in me of realizing that it's actually me who doesn't have a spine, and it's actually me who still has this. There's still piece of this diamond that needs to be polished, and that is yes, okay. I recognize that I am crossing my own boundary. And yes, I managed to say a couple of times no, but I didn't persist. I didn't have enough will. I didn't really stood up for myself. And for me, it goes back to my trauma, which was sexual abuse when I was very a small child. And when the children are too small, when they cannot really say yet, that becomes like the difficult piece of really learning the boundaries for the rest of their lives.
The Becoming Flame podcast broadcasts pure, unfiltered power exchange that stokes the flame of your being. Because it's time to remember. It's time to return. It's time to become flame.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Flame. I am Kait Tregenza, your host, and in this episode, I speak with Katerina Foltova. Katerina is a tantric practitioner, trauma-informed guide, embodiment teacher, and initiate of a path she herself describes not as a technique, but as a way of life. She has been inside Tantra for more than 20 years. Wow. Through Ipsalut Tantra, Cobra Breath, trauma release, somatics, temple training, embodiment, heartbreak, which she herself says is probably her deepest initiation, and the repeated initiations of learning how to bring spirit into matter. For Katerina, Tantra is obviously not about performance, and I'm not even sure that it's about having better sex for her. For her, it's about ascending the body, but also now she's moving out of that into allowing ourselves to truly feel what life has to offer, what this current of life has to offer in the flesh, what sexuality actually allows you to craft your life as. It's about remembering that we are soul and that we have chosen to incarnate here in matter, in density, in emotion, in desire, in pain, and most importantly to her, in relationship. Not to escape it, but really to master it and come close enough to see and become self-aware of our deepest patterns, of our portals to freedom. And in this conversation, we go straight into the place where that mastery is the most difficult. That's in sexuality, it's in attraction, it's in heartbreak, in relationships. The places where we so often hold our deepest shame, our deepest blame, the fear, our longing, our fantasy, fear of abandonment, fear of not being chosen. All of these deepest parts of ourselves that we still want someone else to choose clearly so that we don't have to. Katerina says something in this conversation that becomes the spine of the whole episode. How you deal with your sexual energy is how you create your reality. And I wouldn't say that this episode is an interview, but it's a joint inquiry. It's two women who have walked through their dark nights, emerged, and still have questions remaining, still have inquiries and personal curiosities as a result of that depth, of a result of that darkness. And one of them really is what happens when your attraction is stronger than your spine. What happens when your feminine wants to believe the man will show up, will lean in, will choose you, will become clear, will communicate, will be truthful, will speak completely, accurately, and honestly, and start giving you more space, more time, more explanation, more softness, even when your body has already said no. Her story is the story of so many other women. And really what she's asking in this episode and what we're talking about is what happens when you make yourself available to inconsistency, to someone who's telling you half-truths, to someone who asks you to cross your own boundary and call it love and then not follow through. But it's not ever about the other person, is it? It's about us and the choices we make. And so Katerina talks very deeply about this actually being a conversation about the spine of the feminine, the sacred no, the will, the sword that she speaks of. And it becomes as part of a woman that stops abandoning herself inside of intimacy, inside of attraction, inside of the seeking for a relationship. And we speak about the conscious community, about men who have opened their feminine but not yet found their accountability, about the difference between mystery and just plain avoidance, where you can receive beautiful poetry and offers and spoken word gifts and all the things that you want to hear, and yet it have no truth to it. Where there are men in the conscious community who show up to love without choice, without abandon, without decision, without responsibility, and without really a care about the pain that's created when someone opens the heart for you not to take it, for you not to honor that, and to not take responsibility for what has been opened and offered to you. But of course, this is becoming flame, so the conversation does not stay in blame. And because Katerina also brings it back to the real work. If I'm calling him on his spine, where is mine? If I'm asking him to stand in truth, where am I overriding my own? If I say I have a hard no, why am I still making myself available and overriding that? This episode is for the woman who has stayed too long. Ugh, haven't we all? I think it's so easy to stay too long because you can feel his potential. You can feel her potential. You can see the best in them, and you know that at some level they exist in that way. And you don't see what's in front of you. So for the woman whose system is designed to give, to love, to pour, to feel, to hold, and who is finally learning the difference between generosity and self-abandonment, this is a really good episode. I think it's really asked me personally to ask a lot of questions of like, why do I pour even if I'm self-aware of it? Why do I just give and give and give? And what is this that I'm allowing myself to give away, and for what, and for who, and for why. So yeah, I really see myself in part of who we're talking to in this episode, because it really is for the woman who has mistaken patience for devotion. And for me, I have definitely confused overgiving for compassion and waiting for love. And so I think this episode is for all of us who are really beginning to understand that no is sacred. It's not just about boundaries. If we can really understand that this changes our spine, it changes our bioenergetics, it changes who we are. And so for the woman who has been through heartbreak so deep, it did not simply break her, it showed her the part of herself she could no longer leave behind. Because perhaps heartbreak is not actually proof that you failed. Perhaps it is the dark night that teaches you where your light is. And sometimes it is the initiation that shows you where your spine lives. Let's welcome Katerina to the podcast.
This episode of Becoming Flame is brought to you by Phoenix. Phoenix is a ritual luxury house devoted to erotic feminine embodiment. We create alchemical intimacy oils and functional fragrances infused with spagyric botanicals designed to soften the nervous system, open the body, and awaken life force vitality. Our formulations are crafted as tools of self-initiation. They are not cosmetic. They are not decorative. They are designed to be felt. They are designed to shift. Each oil facilitates a cellular shift into relaxation and receptivity, activating and opening up an archetypal femininity that your body knows and is yearning to step into. These oils allow the body to open safely into sensual intelligence, magnetism, and creative power. They open the libido and open creative sexual energy. When the body is safe, it softens. When it softens, it receives. When it receives, it creates. And when it creates, the entire world shifts. We believe that women who sit deeply in their bodies, in their erotic intelligence and sovereignty, become powerful creators of their lives and the environments around them. Our products are initiations into that coherence. Luxury and experienced, devotional in use, transformational in effect. Get yours now at phenix.com. That's PHENXX.com.
Katerina, welcome to Becoming Flame.
Hello, Kate. Thank you for having me.
I think it's really important to set the scene about what is Tantra, what is your version of Tantra, what is the initiation that you personally went through, what was that journey of initiation, because there's so many schools of Tantra, right? Just so that we and the listeners are all on the same page. What is your entryway into Tantra, into this body of work?
Yeah, I started with Tantra sometimes 20 years ago, and I feel like I've been through all the different facets and initiations possible within Tantra. And Tantra for me, it's a way of life. It's a path towards higher consciousness. It's about allowing ourselves to really truly feel what life current has to offer in the flesh. It's about bringing the soul, the spirit into matter, ultimately. It's about ascending, remembering that we are the soul, that we are the spirit, and that we've chosen to incarnate on earth in order to support the initiation of the bigger soul, which is our planet. And so I feel like Tantra is just a part of the technology, or let's say like a step of an initiation of a human being that we need to go through. We need to be able to, let's say, crack the codes or master the matter in a way that we know how to sustain ourselves, in a way that we know how to create, and create from a place of remembrance that we are souls. So also expand into being souls and expand into the energetic world, and understanding that not everything is about making money and producing. So when we come to this place of the spirit and matter balance of our mastery, and also of course sexuality, and understanding how life force is important to know, and I think it's also the hardest. That's why the tantra, because it is the place where we hold most of our shame, blame, fear, and emotions. Like there's just so much that opens with sexuality, which is in intimacy and emotions, and yeah, like just so much, like so many shadows. And once we are able to actually master that, then something deeper opens. And that's actually where I feel I'm at. I have gone through number of initiations in my life. I seem to be here to do just that. And
To initiate another initiation?
yeah, it seems like that's what my soul feels most on fire for, actually really following what makes me feel alive. And then yeah, so maybe that's when I want to introduce actually the studies that I have done with the School of Ipsalut International, that I'm deeply grateful for these teachings that are holding the teachings of Babaji Nagaraj, who is the ascended master. And he gave us the gift of Cobra Breath. And that is a very ancient tantric kriya practice that is held in secret and only in oral tradition. So it's like a technology that helps us to move our sexual energy, to awaken the dormant neural pathways, and like literally speeds up your evolution and teaches us how to use sexual energy for our like spiritual evolution, right? So then love making becomes your spiritual practice, which is like, this has been the absolute strongest tool I have ever had in my life. And it took me through a lot of processes and deaths, together with studying trauma release and trauma therapy and learning about the body, because it's not only about ascending, it's not only about us learning how we remember that we are soul, which is very needed, but it's also, and this is also where a lot of spirituality gets lost, that it's like, let's remember that we are soul, but then what about
Then
the
what?
shadow? The shadows. And what about our body? Yeah, because the soul always wants to go ahead, but then like, what about our body? What about our feelings, emotions, and desires, and fears, and boundaries? And so yeah, that all that is in our body. And that's why also the trauma release and studying about trauma awareness and somatics and embodiment is a really important part of the tantric path. So learning how to be the soul, meaning how to be the spirit and the matter, so we can remember that our mission on earth is way bigger than that we are here to support the awakening of the whole being, which is our planet. And then in that sense, we are a planetary beings. So I would say I'm actually moving right now so that's like the next death process that I'm going through. I have been serving the initiations to Cobra Breath for last 7 years and studying another 7 years. And I have been holding trauma release trainings and supporting humans to raise their emotional intelligence, because God, this is yeah. And I have compassion, because I have also gone through, and I feel it's so needed that we raise our emotional intelligence. And I'm moving towards the teachings of Aquarian age, I would say. So going through the ISTA trainings, which has led me to study with Bruce Hayden, temple trainings, mystery school in New Zealand. And yeah, there I feel I felt very deeply met on all levels, where we are working with astrology, astronomy, where we work with embodiment, and also the teachings of the Ascended Masters of Shambhala, which are designed for this specific time, which is the time of us moving from Piscean to Aquarian age. And we are currently according to the teachings, we are currently in the 50 years of transition, and 2025 was marking the halfway, where the crisis is the biggest crisis that we are going through right now. We can also see it out there. And let's say, according to the teachings, and it's also what I feel in myself and in this process of being like dying and being reborn, is that we have last 10 years, we've been learning all the ones that we remember why we are here. We've been learning the love and the truth, how to live the love and the truth, and also communicate, and how to live in unity, in community. And I feel that, and it's also what is happening now, is we are being asked to move, to learn how to hold power and how to stand in our will. And this is what is for me right now a really important piece. So that's also why I'm moving now from these, let's say, bringing attention to the teachings of Ipsalut. I'm moving now to what is alive in me. And I feel the teachings of how do I stand in my will. And what really makes me feel alive is the teachings of this time. And if we are really truly tuning into like where I am in the purity of alignment and integrity, what I stand for in this world, and do I really allow myself to feel all the pain that it's out there, that is where we as a humanity need to move towards. So that's in a nutshell where I'm at right now, and why all this observation of what is happening between men and women and in relationships, the commitment issues, is rising in my work right now.
I definitely want to get into that. I just have a few questions or comments, musings. I don't know. I'm going to say some words based on what you said, however they come out. I think there's something that I've been really wondering about recently. When you know in the depth of you that you are here for these times, specifically these times, and you have so much knowledge of that, you have so much like remembrance of that, memory of that, and like not necessarily like a memory of like in a different place, this is what was told to be, but just like a deep, unshakable, choiceless knowing that it's this time, and your signal, and your body, and your consciousness, and your contribution. I've been wondering if it's not that everyone has to learn to hold pain in their body, or if it's just really specific biologies, really specific women who are aware, specific people who actually know how to hold pain in their bodies because they've come with codes of alchemy. Because I see so many people who might be available to a consciousness path, but they have no capacity to feel anything, first of all. But if they can feel, they really cannot feel the voltage. They really cannot. And you hear it everywhere, right? Like these people who are like, oh, I can't do that. I can't go to your 40th birthday party because it's too disruptive to my nervous system, or I can't do this, or I can't do this because my nervous system can't handle it. And on the one hand, I can really empathize, and I can really see that there's so much going on that we are being asked to hold. And yet, at the same time, I feel like because there are so many people who are wired to alchemize, that have been through so much more than could ever be imaginable for the average person to go through. And they're like, yeah, That was my warm up. Like, let's bring it on. So I guess I'm just wondering, from not only the teachings that you've been initiated into, but also your personal life experience, do you think that we are all made to alchemize at this point in time in history? Or do you think we are, like, there are some that are here to really do the bulk of the alchemy? I'm just wondering, like, there's no right answer to this. How could we ever know? But I'm just curious about, given that you've said what you've just said, and that's been amusing for me in the last couple of months.
Well, that's of course a question of what do we believe in, but like what I understand and how do I see it is that we all have made the choice to come here. But to be a soul in matter is extremely difficult task. So we
Yes.
all have made the choice to be here. We just forgot because the density of matter is so challenging. So like, first of all, I want to kind of, like thumbs up for like, wow, we have chose this here. Like we're really extremely courageous beings to come to this advanced university, which is bringing spirit into matter. And so in that sense, I feel all of us, we are capable. We are not all capable to arrive to like the highest next initiations, but we are all capable to make the next step. And for every person, the next step is different. For example, what you were saying right now, like there's people right now, especially in these times when we live in overstimulation. There's a constant overstimulation. This is a new experience we are having on Earth. We have not had that before. I come from the generation where we didn't have a phones. And so to have the connectivity and to have this much information has its pros and cons. And one of these cons is that we are overwhelmed. Our nervous systems are overwhelmed. So for these people, the next step is learn to resource. Like this is a kind of a trauma therapy, right? Learn to resource. If you are overwhelmed, learn to resource. If you are overriding, slow down and go deeper into allowing yourself to feel, find a way to feel. So goes into like next step initiation for these people will be a trauma therapy, and then once you can actually hold your matter, then probably would be the like a meditation or I generally in tantric path I would say that you want to be having a foot in each side, like having a meditation practice where you are kind of really learning to stabilize yourself in spirit, and that you have a trauma therapy and you learn to stabilize yourself in matter, right? So you want to have presence and you want to have the feeling. And that's literally like the next step of the most of the humans. And to me, I feel everybody is able to make a next step. It doesn't mean that everybody is here to be the leader or to hold a power. But to me, everybody, if we are to create the next step, and if we are to go into the new paradigm, which is the Aquarian age, we are now facing a really big pressure and tension. And it feels to me like it's a natural cycle, when we are changing the gears from learning how to, like, Piscean age is about the god is outside of us. That was the Piscean age. Last 2150 years, the god is outside of us. So we follow the gurus. There is always somebody who is leading us. And we are moving into this era where we are recognizing that we are the gods and that we have our own gnosis, that we have our own wisdom. And ultimately, the next challenge will be how to own your own wisdom and how to then create leadership from listening what is really needed in the moment instead of following kind of structures. But I would say that's advanced. But what I want to say is like what we know and how we know how to do it, it's now crashing. Everything is crashing, like in finances, in systems, in relationships. We don't even know anymore how to do relationships. I feel like there's such a strong shift happening that everything is just falling. And so for the ones who are established in being able to hold presence and being able to hold the matter, or like to stay stable in matter, for these ones I feel that's kind of the natural selection, right? So I know for a fact that there is so many people right now going through psychosis, complete breakdowns, people getting sick, and people just out of the blue just losing it. And it's because there is this enormous tension in the air. We are all going together into the unknown. We don't know how this new era looks like. We have no clue. Absolutely. It's out of a box. And so the teachings of the times that are coming is learn to stabilize yourself in presence and learn to regulate your body. And if you are frozen, just go to a trauma therapist and learn so you can actually feel, because that is what is going to support you to make the next step into this new era. Because the new downloads are coming, the learnings and the teachings are about how can we stay in the unknown without losing ourselves and without losing the connection to the alignment to what we stand for.
It's interesting hearing what you're saying, because I know, like, I know that there are people losing it, and like, COVID was an initiation for a lot of people to like, oh wow, the world isn't what I thought it was. And yet like everybody has amnesia so often, and they like arrive at this next point and they're like, what? This is crazy. And you're like, I know that that's happening, but I think what's so is so exciting. And I think that a lot of people listening to this podcast are not experiencing that reality anymore. And they're experiencing the true excitement of this moment. And I know that sounds really strange to be like, yes, the world is falling apart. We've been waiting for this. But I think when for so many years or so many decades, your life hasn't made sense in the structure, in these systems that like are not to the benefit of people, not to the benefit of nature, not to the benefit of this whole collective, right? And that doesn't make sense to a lot of people who are here for the mission of, we're here to shift into this new era. We're here to, and so you sit and you watch this and you go, how on earth am I even going to start this? I know I'm here for this huge big thing, but like, this can't be it. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I think as people started feeling the structures crumbling and falling, like this implosion from the inside and also explosions coming from the outside as well. It's like, it's going to take care of itself. And we're just here to support that. Like and I think it finally made sense for a lot of people when the concept of your frequency is what does it. You holding the frequency of truth, you holding the frequency of your own self. I think that's been so hard to believe until 1 or 2 years ago. And I think there's a lot of people gravitating to a podcast like this because it's like, yeah, I don't want to say how excited I am. Like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff on the material level that's really hard. And I don't know what I'm actually going to do in a lot of ways. But the release of having to know is almost like, oh my God, this is what I'm made for. The trust that I've been developing in my body for the last however many decades finally mean something. Like now I actually have something to navigate that all of this stuff, everything in my life has been leading me to. And I think one of the final pieces, or one of the central pieces, I should say, is sexuality. And I think looking at sexuality, Eros, the life force energy of the body, now takes on a very different meaning. Now takes on a very different, like, okay, how do I use this technology beyond having good sex or beyond opening myself up to, like, what is it now that sexuality can do in navigating uncertainty? And I really love that you spoke to that as well, because I think that's what is dropping in for a lot of people of like, okay, so there's this technology, it's going to help me. I'm still working it out exactly. But I now know that like the more turned on, the more alive my body is, the more easy it is for me to follow the synchronicities, more easy it is for me to follow those next steps. And it becomes really simple, if not easy, at least clear. Okay, that's the next step, and that's the next step, and that's the next step. And so gone are the days where it's like, what's your 5-year plan? It's like, how are you navigating this truly uncertain time with the certainty of trust within yourself?
Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel, is a lot of what's coming into my realm, as opposed to the, oh my God, everything's falling apart. It's this, everything's falling apart.
Yeah.
I'm made for this. I think I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. And so, but what I hear is that you are pointing out that actually the question about how to use our sexuality in order to actually find ourselves instead of lose ourselves.
Yes.
Because ultimately, that's also what Tantra is about. The
Yeah.
Tantra is leading us to understand that how you deal with your sexual energy is how you create your reality, actually.
Mm.
And so it is, it is not just like, okay, I do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm done. It's way more complex.
Tick, perfect life, all done.
But for sure, I would say it's really important to become a witness of how do you follow your sexual energy and what do you do with that. Because, yeah, of course, our sexual energy indicates our attractions, for example. And we can use sexual energy as observation, like, oh, wow, I am really attracted to this man. And let's look what he's got to bring. And then just witness ourselves and our patterns that still need to be made conscious and bring these pieces of our, let's say, wounded child or beliefs that we still hold. So sexual energy in a way is the catalyst for the cards to be put on table, and then you are also asked to be the conscious witness and kind of like a detective to see the pieces that are still unintegrated or are unbalanced. So I, for example, understand that now that I have gone through a lot of trainings, I see that there are teaching of the cross. I don't know if you heard about it. The light masculine, light feminine, dark masculine, dark feminine. And to really integrate all 4 quadrants, when we are really truly able to hold our relationships in the world through the lens of integrated of all those 4 quadrants in a healthy way, use use each of those light feminine, light masculine, dark feminine, dark masculine in the moments that are needed. That's when actually your soul can safely land in the matter. And also, of course, your childhood, you got to be a parent for your child. So there's all these important steps to be made in body mind evolution, so the soul can truly land, and then from there you can fully see what is your purpose here. And it kind of keeps evolving, obviously. the further than you are. And that is actually the compass. I feel that if we can stay in the unknown, if we can embody all the four quadrants of the parts of ourselves and stand in the center, that is giving us the directions to how to navigate in the unknown. Like, I feel like when we can do that, that's when we can actually fully trust the unknown. I feel the moments that are bringing the most fear of the unknown is knowing that we have patterns that got us into a lot of. So I would say I feel sexuality, and how do we use sexuality consciously and create conscious relationships is the way forward for us to be able to navigate where are we heading right now. Because of course we can always like restrain from relating and be like, okay, I'm going to focus on my career and I'm going to focus on this and that. But actually the deepest wounds are only able to be activated through relationships. Like you could be ascetic in the cave, and you could be, talking to gods, and then you maybe meet the man that triggers your inner child, and then you're back where you were.
Definitely.
So yeah, the journey of us.
And I think it's learning not to judge that. I think it's learning to say, here is what I've been asking for. Like, here is the place that I couldn't have come myself. This is the place that has been waiting for me until now. And yes, I knew better. And yes, I've done all the training. And yes, I've, have all the tools and talents, because without them, I couldn't have arrived here and exited, as a strong and integrated person. And I think the learning that we don't go through terrible things as a form of punishment, but as an initiation, as an integration, as a leveling up, not like, oh man, I made a mistake. And I think that's learning. That's something that we can always remember as well in this journey of like, this person has brought me to this darkest aspect of self. It's like, yeah, because you're ready. You can do it.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's a gift to be able to see those parts that still need to be integrated, of course. But we need to have the willingness to understand that ultimately there is nobody out there that can give us. Because also I found myself going through a dark night of the soul that was happening through relating for me. I went through really deep heartbreaks 3 years ago, like 2 heartbreaks, one after the other, really strong ones. And I was propelled into like a deep depression. And it was the first time in my life when I realized this is a gift. I never allow myself to go there, because the tendency that we have is when there is pain, we need to either take a painkiller or we need to fix it, or we need to just continue functioning so maybe it passes, or we need to create the new reality so we can already jump over it and be somewhere else. And I think it's the deepest fear of actually diving into the pain and diving into these heartbreaks as portal to initiation. And it is the initiation of being able to be with the pieces of ourselves that are unworthy of love, that the pieces that we forgot that we are love in the core of our being. We are love. And that actually going deeper into the pain and going deeper into the heartbreaks is the most advanced work on earth of this time, I feel. So that is also related to sexuality, because of course sexuality will always bring us the next partner that needs to show us the pieces that we are not seeing. And I think the work that I am feeling called to right now is to bring consciousness about understanding that every relationship is a gift. Every attraction has something to say about what you need to learn about yourself, like which of these quadrants you are not integrated yet, and really consciously choosing to go into the relationships with the possibility that maybe it is not going to be your prince and he's not going to be the one, because there is no such a thing as the one. We are the ones. And ultimately, my experience is that it requires the understanding that if the breakup comes, then it is a gift, it is an initiation. Your heart is ready to upgrade, to break open, to remember that you are love. And it requires a specific container that you have to create for yourself, because like I said, I know a lot of people that have this tendency of rushing into the next relationship or distracting themselves from what is actually happening in that darkness and in that pain, because that is the gift. Inside of the darkness, only when we allow ourselves to go truly into the darkness, only from that place, the bottom of the not knowing, only from there we can truly become something real that we are here for.
It's really beautiful. It's like finding that you are the creator, that you are the source of your own light in the darkness of you as well, right? Sort of what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. It's
When you go ahead.
yeah, it's this very intensive work that needs to be done. And I have the calling to bring consciousness into the world about the unique opportunity to use heartbreak for as a shortcut or as a gate to a true becoming and to remembering that you are loved. And it is a really difficult work to do when we are in pain, because it requires a will.
I think so much of what you're saying is really landing so deeply for me, because after so many years of multiple different modalities that I was practicing, including tantra, but not to the level that you are, but also all of these other different modalities. And I came to such a deep understanding and a deep forgiveness and a deep love for my extremely abusive father, whom I've never had contact with after my childhood because he's so dangerous. And when I finally got to this point in my life where I was like, I am so neutral about him, and I am so like, I can love him. I can see this bigger picture. Like, I have become who I am because of this, and, you know, this beautiful portal. And in my head, in my mind, right, my version of therefore who I was available to now finally step into a relationship was with like a man that would be the opposite of that, you know, a man that would never hurt me, that would never, you know, etc. Except, of course, that's not what happened. And I was catapulted, I think, into the deepest, darkest, scariest, most lonely, most isolated place of my entire life. Except now I had to navigate it with a baby.
Okay.
And it took me so long to shift into, of course, like for a long time, I was blaming myself. Like, I should have known better. I could have done better, et cetera, et cetera. I'd done this work. Like, why did I? And it felt like such a failure. And I think what resonated with me about your work and what you were saying was, especially now that I'm on the other side of that, and I'm like so totally in love with who I am in a way that I never have been before, in a way that, like, when I came to peace with my father, I still didn't want to say what I've been speaking about these things and teaching these things for years. But I didn't come to a conclusion point where I was like, I now feel like I want to be vocal and visible and online. It wasn't until this part that nearly literally broke me that I was like, I don't know if I get up from this one. Like, I've been through however many versions of hell in my life, but I don't know. I don't know how to get out from this one. And it was so dark for so long until I finally found that I am the light source, that I am the love source, that no one can take that from me. And it was even funny that, there was a point in time in that journey where I thought, I've got to work with someone. I've just got to get out of this place. And I lost my hearing right around this time that I was thinking, I'm going to work with somebody else because I can't do it myself. It's too long. It's too hard. I'm too deep in it. And I lost my hearing. And I lost my hearing completely until I found my own light. And then I didn't need to work with anyone. I didn't need to listen to anyone. And it was such an interesting kind of conclusion, like everything that we've been speaking about in this call is like, I felt like I had to share this story because
Thank you.
we have to stop thinking anyone has the answers for us, right? And we also have to stop thinking that these terrible things that happen to us happen to us.
Yes,
And of
exactly.
course, I had to go through that time and I had to put down my victim story and I had to, do the internal work that I was here to do. But I think it's so easy in this world to live a victim story because there's a lot of support and there's a lot of ears that will hear your story, however bad it is, and play a fiddle for you.
Yeah.
But that never gets you to the life that you want to live. And it definitely doesn't lead us to the mission work, the purpose work that you're talking about. It's like, this is all here so we can shift ourselves into this next era. But if you're stuck in victimhood, if you're stuck in, woe is me, this bad thing happened to me when I was a kid and then it happened again, that's a choice.
Exactly. Yeah, the choice. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate and I also resonate. Interestingly enough, I also felt that what happened after the last two very important breakups, they all kind of happened one after the other. I also experienced this piece where it was like, no, like it's a no to your usual way how you would do this. It's just a no. We are in a different times. This is different. Like if you are here to resolve this, it's really about feeling it all until the end. And that is also a really scary place. And I would say to anyone who is listening to this podcast, our core wound, which is we all have a core wound. As a trauma therapist, we all have trauma. We cannot escape it. And our core wound is our North Star. It's our, when we learn to alchemize it, and it's not even learn, when we are finally repeating the story over and over and over and over enough times to really see what is happening. And when we finally allow ourselves to go to the bottom of the deepest, feel it all until the end, and we feel it all until the end will really truly give us the direction of where we need to correct our behaviors, obviously. And I mean, behaviors is also like, if I am not in integrity with what I want in my life, if I am crossing my own boundary, if I have a hard no to a man being alcoholic, or a man who has another woman, or a man who is flaky, or a man who is, lives in a mystery, never makes choices, if I make myself available to that, then of course that is also me creating that reality for myself, because I'm obviously not aligned with my integrated masculine. So yeah, let's say there is a deep medicine within going into the deepest, darkest pain until the end, because that's what will give us like the I know that I will never do this again. It's like really when we allow ourselves to really truly go into the bottom of everything, it's kind of like doing that real big surgery. Instead of putting plaster, we go for the surgery.
But it was interesting. Like, for me, it wasn't like this, I'll have a different relationship now. It was surgery on every aspect of my life that ever had ties or intertwining with any kind of abuse. And so, how my relationship with money, with work, with family, with friends, with the way I was driving my car, like everything. It's like anytime there was, because I love rage, and I'm so embracive of, like, this sacred, amazing, beautiful rage. But like road rage is not beautiful. That's just something that it's like, if people are road raging against me, if they're doing this. So it's like every single aspect of my life. I'm just trying to say, like, silly examples that, like, being stuck in traffic makes everyone upset and angry and, like, in a agitated mood. And so it was like every single level of my life where I was making conscious choices to allow myself to be in a position where I didn't come out of it feeling amazing and energized and, like, worshipped and adored and loved and like, wow, thank you for being here. Like, this is so great. Everything that wasn't that exited. And it wasn't in like, now I've got to make these choices, and like, it was just like, I walked out of my darkness fully integrated in the dark night, in the dark light that I could hold in my body, and everything else just naturally was repelled out. And it was like, I've been waiting for this for a long time. And I think when we think, oh, I have to work on my relationships, or I have to work on this, like, we see it in these like segments. But your energy and your frequency and your field is a complete biosphere, right? It's a field that you emit. And so whatever you're accepting in one segment of your life is what you're accepting in another. You just might not see it yet or know it yet. And so I think that's what you're saying in terms of these quadrants. Being so unafraid of your dark energy is such a beautiful thing, because life is not about love and light. It's about the fullness of us. And these quadrants are so, I think people understand the dark and the light, but I'd love you to start now talking about the masculine and feminine, and like how the four quadrants and the two halves might, be clearer to people about your philosophies and the deepness of holding the masculine and feminine.
Yeah. Yes, I feel like called to just say that for me, the light is like the energetic, and maybe would be like the like yeah, like, I don't know how to say it really. Yeah, I would say like the energetic, and the dark is the dense is the density. And so in the feminine, it's more receptive, and it's more kind of moving, and the masculine is the penetrative and more holding, more stable. And I would say, yeah, I just feel like where can I start really? What I observe a lot is in the conscious community, for example, like, because I just want to speak like from my own experience. Yeah. So from my experience, I see in the conscious community, I mean, I live in Berlin, so there's a whole bubble of conscious people, and everywhere I move, I'm in the bubble of conscious people. And so I wrote a post where I actually got really on fire for speaking up for, yes, it is. I observe in men that they are now available to, or able to be in their feminine, meaning like they are able to feel, they are able to process, they are able to listen, and they are able to float more spontaneously and be vulnerable. But what I observe is that that's an expression of opening themselves to the feminine, which I feel it's the status quo for an average man. I feel it's really needed in our society, that man becomes more in touch with tenderness, with playfulness, with creativity, spontaneity, and with like really listening what is moving through. Yeah. I feel in average man or in like the society that is not so in the conscious bubble, this is really needed. So that's when I say feminine. I would say like the feminine quadrant would be being in touch with all of that, with feeling and with being spontaneous. And so let's say I feel really mad and I feel touched when I meet men who can listen to me and who can feel me and who can reflect back to me. And there is a deep beauty and also attraction for me to continue deeper encounter with the man who has developed his feminine. And I, of course, want to say feminine also for us women. Like we live in a productive world and we have learned to make decisions and be productive and to kind of numb ourselves to our feelings so we can actually like keep going, no overridings. For many women also it's necessary in the average world, at least like what I see here in Germany is like working, doing. And where is the being? Where is the feeling themselves? Where is the listening to what is? So I will not move until my body says, now I want to just lie in the hammock. And then the next thing is like, okay, now I want to go for a swim. And now I want to make food, not like at 2 in the afternoon. And that's 3, I have this call. So I feel like world also need women going more into their feminine. But let's say in these conscious communities, I was addressing the fact that there is so many men that has made this step, and it feels really like an advanced next level. But where is the responsibility? It's kind of like I feel and I witness that men then they lose themselves in the feminine and they lose themselves in thinking that being indecisive means I am in the mystery, or being inconsistent, or I'm just following life, or using like intense feelings, dramatic feelings, and creating pain for themselves and others. Oh, now I'm gonna just use the emotions to make a poetry, and that for me feels like a stuckness. That for me feels like, yes, you guys have made step, and like, where is your sword? And that was what I was writing about. Where is your accountability? Where is you understanding that being in your feminine is only half work done? Now, please come back to being clear. And also, I feel like freedom is only a freedom when you are able to choose, or when your responsibility is what gives form to the aliveness. So it's like there is still more work to done, which is also owning it. Yeah, I feel there's this pattern in men that I observe is engaging in opening new relationships, or new like opening new relationships, and opening like the hearts of the women without having any particular direction or clarity. What do you want to do with the heart of the woman that has opened? What do you want to do? Are you even available for following up? Are you even aware of yourself that when you open the heart of somebody and you are not available, that you're going to actually create pain? And do you take responsibility for that? So there was a lot coming, because I hear it from all my sisters and I also see it in my own life. And there was a lot that was happening for me that I felt like, hey, like I have to speak up. I have to speak up, and I feel like it is important to call the men in our community on that kind of behavior. And at the same time, I realized that if I am calling them on their spine, I'm calling them on their, let's say, integrated masculine. Where is my integrated masculine? if I am making myself available for inconsistency, where I stay longer than I should stay, where I soften and explain, and I give space for them to process, and I wait until they show up, and then they maybe show up. But then, so my process was a lot about that, about like where I am in this balance of my light feminine, that it's all encompassing and compassionate, and where I am over giving, where I am acting like either therapist or mother and giving space and when waiting until the man rises, and where I am actually not fully standing in my accountability to myself, where I am not self-loyal, or where I am not having the clear discernment, or where I am not putting boundaries. So in the end, actually, everything is about the relationships that I carry inside of me. How am I loyal to myself? How my masculine takes care of my feminine. So what you're saying is that after your process, what I hear, you realize that actually cutting things off or saying no or like removing yourself from things that are not serving to you, maybe previously felt like something difficult, but ultimately I feel that after your dark night of the soul, you realize that there's nothing ugly about being assertive and being clear and being true to yourself, even if it might be uncomfortable in some situations of not pleasing.
100%. So the end of the story, because it's my life and it's continuing, is those who could be in a clear yes and a clear no naturally came back. Even if I said, like, even if they were exited or they just moved away for a moment, those who appreciated the clarity of a yes and a no, of a this or a that, who weren't trying to siphon or feed or take from me for their own lack of energy resource, came back, and we reestablished relationship in a dynamic that was sustainable for my system and sustainable for their system. And I think that sometimes can be the clearest and cleanest way to understand whether you are in a shifted sovereignty state, because now spending time with somebody else doesn't send you into going in and having a coffee with a friend, and then you've got to like stay home for the rest of the week because you're so dysregulated from that, or you feel so taken and pulled back. I think my system, for example, is so designed to give. Like, I love just giving and loving and pouring myself into someone, that I don't always notice in the moment if that person then starts taking more than I'm giving, or if that is overstepping my own boundary, and so I think it's tricky, especially if you're really like a woman that lives in overflow and you're so happy to give out that which is beyond what you need. It's hard in those moments to notice this is now taking more than I'm giving. This is now siphoning off. And so boundaries for me have been a really interesting topic, because I don't know that I also die if I have too many strong boundaries, right? I need to feel other people and I need to give to them. That's my system. That's my energetic structure. I learned a lot about boundaries from having a child, and I kind of started to reframe it as walls of my womb with her. Like, I don't call them boundaries or rules with her. I just am like, the womb that I am growing you in is just getting bigger and bigger. But when it's not my own child, I can't put a womb around a girlfriend. That's a weird dynamic. So sometimes I've like thought about it as more like a moat, and I open and close the drawbridge. And when it's open, it's like, come be with me. I have so much to give you. And then you have to leave. And then the drawbridge goes up, and I take time in isolation and in stillness and in silence when that's up. And I don't know why boundaries are so hard of a concept for me. I think it's because I I it is so much part of my energy structure to love to help. And what I found is having opening hours to helping, as opposed to you can arrive at any time, because I'll never turn someone away. Like, that's just who I am. Like, it's how I'm made. If somebody asks me for help, I am never going to be like, sorry, I'm too busy, because that's like part of my purpose, right? And so it's been an interesting, I think what's changed the most, I'm like thinking about your question, and I think what's changed the most is my deep comfort and almost like happiness and reveling in being the villain in somebody else's story. Like, if I say no to you because I know this is a person that if I don't seek to help this, because this person's created too many betrayals, this person has never treated me well, all of these other things, and it's just a no. Or if it's a new person that comes and I do a body check and it's like, I'm sorry, it's a no for you. I'm so happy now to be the villain in that person's story and own that and just be like, that's okay. I'm not going to be everybody's favorite person. And so that's another way that I've chosen, like, boundaries for me is like, whom I help. And I don't ask questions, and I give and I give. But if that person isn't someone that I can help or am willing to help or want to help, then it's a no, and I'm clean in both. So I no longer get angry at somebody who asks me my help and I say yes, and then I overgive, and I can't get angry at that because that person didn't do that. I did that. And I'm accepting of that, and I'm also accepting of saying no to the person I don't want to be around or be interacting with or give to or whatever. I don't know if that answers your question.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I feel it goes back to this place where your no is sacred, and learn that actually it's a yes to you. And if it creates pain for the other, you are not responsible for that, because that is just means that that person needs to learn something about receiving no. And and I feel like there's
And
just
it's
no.
information for me, right? If that person turns my no around onto me and tries to make it my issue or my responsibility, then it
That
was
am
so correct that it was no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it just shows you where the person is on the emotional maturity level. And I feel that then that really defines very clearly when we allow ourselves to stand for ourselves, and it means that we will hurt others. How the people react will define then who are our people, actually.
Mm, mm.
Because of course it's always going in loops. Like, the people that feed into the victim will always be hanging out with the people that are like willing to play the perpetrator victim role. But in a moment you understand, like, I am not a victim, I'm responsible for how, like, I am the creator of my own reality. And when you make that jump, then suddenly all the other people will become not attractive.
You just made me realize another answer to the question. After all of this happened and I was coming out of it very early on, still finding my feet, still making sense of it and everything, I started like impulsively. And this is like the other thing about the spontaneous feminine, right? Like, I impulsively knew that I needed to start volunteering at a center where it wasn't a homeless shelter, but it was a center for servicing homeless people and for, let's call them downtrodden, down on their luck, experiencing difficulty and a challenge. And being around these kinds of people every single day who are in their victim and who are so in their victim, like it's their full embodiment, it's their full identity. Everyone needs to help them, and they're entitled in that mentality. They're so entitled, like, you should help me, you should do more. Why is nobody helping me enough? And it was so abrasive to me at this time that I was coming out of this very vulnerable point around dismantling the victim, that anything at that time that still got activated in me, that still got like, I can see that in me, I can feel that in me, like that I can see it in you is because it's in me. It's still there. It's still there. And so even though I came out of my darkness and my like deep cave, the place that I came out to was this like haven and this capital for victims to be attracted to. And I'm sitting there every single day with them going, oh my God, I felt like I needed to vomit out this aspect of me and like get it out. And that helped me more than anything really understand that the boundaries that I set are so less with other people and so more with myself. Like, I will not make choices any longer to blame anyone else. And this idea of like, I have no one to blame but myself, or no one cares about me but myself, became like this really empowering mantra of like, do you want to end up here? Like, do you want to be the eternal victim in your life? Do you want to be talking like these people or acting like these people? And okay, yeah, maybe I wasn't at the level that they were at, but that's just so relative, right? Like, they're so empowered in their victim that they took it all the way to the extreme. And so I'm meeting the extremity of what victim living produces. And yes, everyone has circumstances that leads them into bad things. Like, don't get me wrong. But I sat there and I was like, I have just as many things on paper that could have me sitting in this room on the other side of the table. So why am I there and why am I here? And more importantly, why did I get led here to examine this and to dive deep into this day in and day out? And it was such a deep reality check that I couldn't ignore.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds really like the perfect thing
Yeah.
that your soul led you to.
And I think at that time, that was when I found you and what you were talking about in terms of the spine and the feminine in the spine. And that's why I reached out immediately, because I was like, I feel the difference between spinelessness and spineful living. So yeah, talk to me more about your theories on that.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say that when I was telling you the story of going into the dark night of the soul and then emerging out as love, I came to this place where I realized that actually I don't feel attracted to anybody right now. I feel that I arrived to a very strange place I've never been before. I stopped outsourcing my self of worth, and therefore the relating became somewhat not interesting anymore. Like, unless I would meet somebody who would be in the same kind of vibration, which is really hard. I feel like this place, there's not so many people that really like go until the end when they are like, well, I'm not attracted because I actually don't want anything from you. Like, all I want is to share presence, and I don't need you to do anything specific because I know my value. And I think to arrive to this place, it's kind of an advanced place. And I was surfing on that wave for a while, and also it felt somehow lonely. And so I also decided, and this was all happening simultaneously, that I had the calling to come to the teachings of Haydn. And I've been also studying with Shambhala School or with Avatara. And so it was directed towards me going to temple training. And actually there I found attraction. And let's say the container that we are invited to for 6 weeks, it's a very powerful laboratory where we are invited to still kind of see where we are still acting out of patterns. There's a lot more to it, but let's say we are invited to use attraction and sexuality to see these cracks where we are still not fully owning our power and our will, and where we are not in integrity. And so I was being drawn to this man, and and it became this journey of me realizing that the sexuality and the attraction was stronger than my spine. I was witnessing myself in many ways being able more than ever to speak to things that are no to me, but I was also watching myself how my feminine that wants to believe that the man will show up and lean in, and maybe there is love, and of course there's a beautiful feeling. And so I was surfing that with this man, and I was also seeing, like, I would say no and to things that were clearly no, and then after a couple of days I would come back into it and give more space and give more time and explain things that were not right, and then he would like go through a process and then like show up and be like, oh, you are right, and kind of lean in again. And I did that like number of times. And so I had like a first-hand experience of what I was writing about, because like eventually we did arrive to a place where we had a beautiful journey together, and it went very deep, and he was like showing up. And I think there were questions that I needed to ask, and I didn't, because I think I myself was in the mystery. And I think there were also things that I saw, like red flags that I have not really fully, like, my consciousness was still there. I said, yes, I am in doing this experiment. The container is made for this, to see myself. How do I do myself when I feel attraction and when I feel intimacy? Like, so I was able to track it down and to see it all the way through. I really allowed this pattern to run until the end. And eventually when my heart opened and I really felt like, okay, I really want to see what is there for us. And then he went back because it was the end of our journey and we were going to see if there was going to be more maybe in the future. And he went back to his ex. Like the first day that he went back, he just had a different kind of flow, which truly propelled me into this place where, I went through another heartbreak, let's say. But this is also not the point where when I wrote the article. The point was that I called him on it and I said, hey, like, okay, so you have now another relationship. So how are we going to deal with our relationship? And I encountered this kind of the feminine opened you, but where is your sword experience, where he was writing me poems and he was talking about how much he fell in love with me, but he was really not talking about, because I think it's beautiful to say, yes, hey, I really still love you, and it's really impacted my life. But I think really important is to say, and I am choosing to have a sexuality with my ex, and I can see that this is going to go somewhere as well. And I want to speak that up. I want to own it. And I want to be transparent about it. So it's not in the shadow. So it's here. And that's where I felt like he really wasn't embodying that spine. He was embodying the feminine. He was embodying then he wrote me a beautiful poem and it really touched me. It touched me so deep that I felt like crying, and I stayed there. But then there was something was really off. Like, yes, you are still pulling me in, but you are really not talking about the truth. You are not talking about what else is there. Yes, there is love, and there is the encounter with my ex and I don't know where is it going, and but I want to be honest about it, that it's moving me and this is also there, and let's talk about it. This was like never there. So I watched myself still being taken and still being available, even though inside of me there was already a boundary to that. There was already like, hey, no, like my heart no, on my heart no list is I don't engage with a man that has already another long-term relationship. And still I watched myself making myself available and maybe waiting for him to say something or to make decision. And even if the decision was, hey, I decided to go and give a chance to be with my ex, I see that you are not open for any triangle and it hurts me a lot, and I'm gonna have to go through my own process with it, but this is what I'm choosing. But he never literally spoken up this truth. So there was almost like the space was open and it was blurry and it was this like inconsistent mystery. And that's when I kind of wrote this post saying, hey, like, I am nobody to, like, I am not here to blame you, and I'm not here to blame the man. There's no blame, but I'm calling you on this. I'm calling you on where is your spine, where is your accountability, like where is your choice and where is your truth and honesty, because truth is love. And it's okay that you are indecisive, but say it loud. Hey, I'm indecisive and I am aware, and I make myself, I take 50% responsibility for causing pain by not making choice. And I want to say it because I want to own it. And that for me is to have spine. Even if you're not making the choice, but to bring it, to own it. And so I sat with that for a while, and I also wrote him, and then I realized that actually, yeah, it's great. I think it's important to call the man on this piece and to say, okay, good, you are in this process, and thank you for allowing, like, thank you for making yourself transparent where you are at. So from here, I can make a choice. Do I want this or do I don't want this? But
So what about your spine? Why do you
yes,
think you went over your boundary?
yeah. So I feel that is the piece, and the piece is I've been really sitting with that, and it unleashed a deep process in me of realizing that it's actually me who doesn't have a spine, and it's actually me who still has this. There's still piece of this diamond that needs to be polished, and that is, yes, okay, I recognize that I am crossing my own boundary. And yes, I managed to say a couple of times no, but I didn't persist. I didn't have enough will. I didn't really stood up for myself. And for me, it goes back to my trauma, which was sexual abuse when I was a small child. And when the children are too small, when they cannot really say yet, that becomes like the difficult piece of really learning the boundaries for the rest of their lives. And so for me, this is my piece, of course, and I would not bring anything that is not coming from my own experience. And I have been actually pairing up with my very dear sister, with Maya Magdalena. She's also embodiment coach and dakini and ritualist. And we have been bringing together the program that we want to open for women that want to work on their spine. And of course, we are here as guides, but we are also here as explorers into these topics. We are all learning together. That is the idea. Like, there's no any more gurus. We are all bringing
Guru. No guru. No guru here.
here. We are all humans and we are all learning together. But what we did collected together. So Maya works with sacred rage, and we collected together, and I work with tantra. So we collected together topics that we want to bring into the container so we can really work on that piece together. How can we hold the self-loyalty to don't abandon ourselves when we are faced with intimacy, when we are in attraction or in an unknown experience, or when we are in conflict. Like, how can we stay true to ourselves? And then also we are bringing in more explorations on topics of distinguishing what is our standard and what is our preferences, like how there's a difference between what is a chemistry and what really serve me, like compatibility, fantasy from reality, to gain clarity. So also understanding that what is not negotiable. So because, for example, I feel that what I did in this experience that I had was that I went over my non-negotiable. And yeah, I learned from this experience. And of course, I feel like we only learn through experiencing ourselves and seeing where our patterns still have power over us. And by going and allowing ourselves to go into the pain that we can repair. But we are also going to go into the nervous system understanding, because there is this one, there's like a way how nervous system responds, which is fight, flight, or freeze, and also fawning. So there is fawning and pleasing. So also recognizing, like, for example, what you are sharing right now about how you recognize that you are forever giving, but you are not recognizing when is it already too much until it's already happened, and then you have to take care of yourself for a very long time. So in this program, we are going to be exploring into the nervous system, recognizing the first signs of, okay, now I am fawning. Okay, now I am freezing. Okay, now I am already feeling activated, and learned about the options that we have. And like, I love how you resolved it. I really love how you resolved it, that you have now opening hours. Which is
Hey,
great.
and it's still an experiment, right? Like in 6 months' time, I might be like, that didn't work at all. It's completely changed. And I think that's what you're talking to, is that as you start to move into these events, places of deeply knowing yourself and your patterns, you get to experiment what might work, and then try again, and then try again, and iterate and iterate and iterate. And it's like there's no one answer. And also, a pattern of mine that might really work, but a different pattern of mine, I might need a completely different response.
Right. Well, at the moment, I feel with your opening hours, you're practicing no. You're just practicing no, like kind of indirectly, like, hey, today is not my day. So it's not an open door day. But ideally, like, for example, in the spine program, we would like to, which I feel you're doing it great, because we don't want to like apply all these things like right away and think that it's going to work. Like, I feel that we are learning gradually for our nervous system to get used to hold our boundaries. And we need crutches like what you are doing. It's a huge crutch, like to say, hey, I have an opening hours. So I feel this is a big one, and ideally we want to arrive to a place where we are able to recognize when we are already starting to fawn, when we are starting to overgive. And I think mostly this place of fawning also comes from the belief that we are only going to be loved when we have to like earn our love, or when we earn it through patience and sacrifice and also giving. So
That was a
yeah,
huge one for me. When I was younger, I would immediately think, anytime I liked someone or really liked being in their energy, instead of just like asking, hey, do you want to get a coffee, or do you want to go for a drink or something? Or like, I'm doing this thing next week. Like, why don't you come? I would be like, what can I do for this person? Like, what can I do for them? Can I go and work for them for free? Can I help them move house? Can I, all of this, like, I'm not inherently enough, worthy, likable, lovable, the list goes on. I need to do whatever I can to make this person accept that I'm not even make this person like me, just like make this person accept that I could be around a second time. And I think so when I think of it from that perspective and like the however many, just a second, however many years later through that, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna pat myself on the back that I don't just give to everyone. But it's like we don't all start from the same starting block, right? Like we don't all come from deeply loved, like inherently worthy places in our life. And so it's like we need to acknowledge that privilege exists in how we were loved, in how we were treated, in how we were made to believe our own definitions of ourselves, our own identity, right? So privilege doesn't just exist in race or access to finance, right? In fact, in my opinion, the greatest privilege that you can have is that you are unconditionally loved, because now you are a person who believes you can do anything. And that's a resource we very rarely talk about.
No, I totally agree with you. Most of the people think that the privilege is because we are white and we have money. But if I look at like the number of what means deeply traumatized, is like if you were born to a family where there was alcoholic, if there was violence, if there was emotional unavailability, so those things are deeply damaging for us as human beings when we grow up, even though we have money and even we are successful. And deep inside, actually, we are suffering, and most of us, we don't really know how these deeply rooted wounds, how to alchemize them. And so I
Yeah.
feel that, for example, this what you were just sharing, this is from my experience and from my own experience. This is very much the case of beings that have been born to families where there was violence. And from my own experience, I know how does it feel to even believe that I deserve love just by being just by being me.
And sometimes it takes so long along the path of unwinding from that to even see how that seeps into every aspect of your life, not just in relationship with, an intimate partner, but in every aspect of your life, and in every small interaction that you make. Like even ordering your coffee can present like ways of how you can see whether you hold a belief on inherent worth or not. And I think that's what's so fascinating about the work is it's not about judging yourself and not about fixing yourself. It's not about saying you're right or wrong or need to heal or haven't healed enough. It's about saying, okay, I'm now aware of this. I'm now
Yes,
aware of this.
exactly.
And that spine thing, it's really fascinating because both from a metaphysical, spiritual perspective, but also from the tangible physical spine that you hold. Your nervous system and your spinal skeletal structure will literally change from exposure to abuse, right? Like this is at one end. Yeah, you can think of this as like have a spine, grow a spine, but like what if your spine has literally frozen into a nervous system that is bracing or like is hyper vigilant every single day of your life? Like you just unwinding from that is huge and life changing. Like we all start from different points and we all have different goal posts. And I think that just giving ourselves grace can sometimes go a long way.
Yes. I really love how you pointed it out that actually it's all about awareness. Because, how do we stay in integrity if we don't really even have a awareness of what do we stand for? And and often it's because we are not really even aware of such a thing as pleasing and fawning exists, and that we don't have a groups of people where we can self-reflect and where we can talk about it. And of course, once we are able to catch ourselves and see ourselves, then we have a choice and we can come into discernment. And even if we repeat the patterns, we heal by compassion and being compassionate with ourselves and trusting that everything has its own timing. Yeah. And I would say in this work that we are creating, the spine with Maya, so we are also going to be bringing attention to internalized patriarchy and misogyny, because we are not only talking about the trauma that happens in the families, but it's also the ancient trauma that we carry as women living in patriarchy, and how we have actually created our own patriarch inside of us that it keeps constantly telling us that we should
Yeah.
go with that man because he chose us, instead of being true to what we are choosing. And this is what really brings us back into our power, when we really realize, like, oh, now I chose because I was chosen, but would I actually choose this man?
Yeah. So
Question.
big, right?
Yeah, these
So
are
big.
questions. And so I'm really excited about this container that we are about to open. We are also
I
going to
love
go.
that you're also dealing with misogyny, because part of me walking out of that deep cave was also coming face to face with my own misogynist, to really understand the part of me that hates women, not because can you just go? Can you just go? You don't want to be here, so just go. Lie down. Thank you. The part of me that was like face to face. Alea, I will be there soon. I'm finishing up. Going to bed and I'm coming back. Then could you please we can't finish if you're making lots of noise, darling. You either sit with mommy. No, 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 no. You either sit with mummy and you're quiet and I'll cuddle you, or you'll lie there and you just stop crying and we'll go to bed soon. Just come here. Just a second, sir.
Yeah.
Are you there? Sorry.
No, no worries. You have all my compassion and love, because being a mother, you are the hero. I'm not a
It's okay.
mother, and I think it's a really big job. So
It's
yeah.
a big job. It's a
Yeah.
big job. And I was saying, one of the things that I was really surprised about in this full taking it all the way to the end, and was meeting the misogynist, my own misogynist, to come face to face and heart to heart with this part that hates your very existence because you're a woman, is weird. It's so weird, because it's like, that's why misogyny exists, because we all hold that within our bodies.
Yeah.
So it's a really big deal. And then the impact that had on my spine was huge, was so huge. It didn't even realize, like, leaving abusive constructs, leaving my own self-hatred, and then my own misogynistic hatred, the level of flexibility that changed in my physical spine was so noticeable.
Wow, this is impressive, even to just hear how it directly reflected in your physical world. I can also feel it. I can totally feel it. I feel that for me, it's more patriarch is way more present when I'm in Germany. I feel as soon as I land in Germany, I really feel the pressure I put on myself to perform and to suppress the kind of non-structural just beingness. And it really reflects in pain in my back. And I'm being very observant these days. And it's directly connected.
Because when I was in my very toxic relationship, I had enormous, unbearable back pain. And almost 1 week later, after like getting treated constantly all the time in my relationship and never having any movement on that, 1 week later, 2 weeks later, gone. Back pain, gone. And I think it's just if anyone hasn't connected osteoskeletal, spinal, especially because for me as well, I feel like I grew up in proximity to my mother, who was what we would call, like what we would label as a spineless woman. And so for me, it was this, I was very strong-willed. I was very like spinal. It had like really important posture. I've always walked in a certain way and all of that. And then it was like this moment where like what I saw a woman being married looking like felt like my body was like, I have to disintegrate. I have to go. Like I have to be like that. That's how marriage is in my child's eyes. Like that's and it made sense to me all of a sudden, like getting married felt like the deepest self-betrayal because I had to get my spine dismantled and disintegrated. And it wasn't just like I had to be spineless and floppy. I had to like literally disintegrate it because my spine was so strong. And I remember like this feeling of like, that's so weird. And I dismissed it. And then later re-erected my spine through this process. It was really interesting.
Yeah, when I'm listening to you, you seem very erected to me right now.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
erected.
I can feel your fire, and I can really feel just, yeah, the honesty with yourself, and also the I feel your penetrative presence and owning the pieces, which for me, I feel this is a lot about the spine.
Interesting. Yeah. So what else is in your program?
Yeah, so we are also going to be dealing a lot about the worthiness and self-trust, and
Mhm.
I feel like I want to say that this program, it's for women that already are on the healing path and that know the language of embodiment and know the language of somatic experiences, and that know, yeah, maybe something about self-development, and yet still they are abandoning themselves in intimacy and in fantasy and in conflict. Yeah. So I feel like this program is specifically for us, that we have been walking this path of integrating the pieces that are
Mm,
still missing.
mm.
And we feel that this part, it still needs more awareness. So the
Yeah, I
core
love
of
that because it's really easy to be yourself and hold your spine when everything's going right. But what about in conflict? What about
yeah,
in these moments where you really need your spine? Do you feel abandoned? Do you feel supported? Do you fawn? Do you freeze? Do you
exactly.
fight the unnecessary? Like, yeah, I think that's really, it's like in the, when your feet are held to the fire, how do you?
Exactly, yeah. Like when there's attraction or when there is the unknown, like how do you stay in integrity with yourself? And then, so this whole program, it's actually about going over all these different steps that I was saying to become aware what are the underlying forces that are unconscious, so to make them conscious and to then have the clarity of discernment.
It's
Which means
interesting what you're saying, yeah, because both are highly aroused states, right? When you're in pursuit of a person or you have attraction to another person, there's an arousal state. And nervous system activation is an arousal state. Trauma is an arousal state. And sometimes we conflate when we feel trauma and that arousal is in the body. Even when there's not trauma in a relationship, we only understand like in arousal, my body feels unsafe. And so you start making a fight, you start making a nervous system reaction that's like, wait, whoa, what's happening? Like, what's going on? Or you conflate falling in love with being in trauma. These things are really.
yeah, exactly. So we're also going to be definitely dismantling this piece of the sacred rage and dismantling the piece of the activation in the nervous system.
Mhm.
And when is it like a trauma bonding, and when is it actually like a soul meeting soul to give each other medicine? So we're going to be going into all these topics, and I can already feel like the flame that is there as me and Maya, as we are creating the container.
Amazing, beautiful. Tell people how they can connect with you, how they can find this work.
Okay, yes. So I work online and also in person. At the moment, me and Maya, we are creating this program, The Spine, on divinityinmatter.com/the spine. And if you want to work with me one-on-one in regards to heartbreak as an initiation, this is the one-on-one mentorship that I offer right now. Or also if you would like to work with either you are a male body and you want to activate your dark masculine or your integrated masculine, or either you are a woman and you don't want to be in the container and you just want to work one-on-one, then you will find me on my website, kachenka.org, KACHENKA.org, or through my Instagram, tantra.serpent.rising.
Amazing. I have one final question for you before we leave. If you had one vision for what your work could do for the world, what would that vision be? If everyone in the world could do your work and be transformed with it, what would the world shift into? What would it change into?
Wow. Yeah, my dream is to create an integration, like integrative school, a program where people are raising their emotional intelligence and also learning how to work with the sexual energy, and then integrating all the quadrants and then becoming ready to actually act and stand in their purpose. So if I feel people after my work are walking in this world, soul shining their purpose, truly standing anchored into the matter and into the spirit, and expressing their work from a place of deep love and devotion to the bigger purpose, to the bigger cause. Which is, I feel like ultimately I really just wish to contribute to create the army of all the beings that are here to support this awakening and this shift that we are going through. Yeah, I just want to say, like, it's very new for me, yeah, because I was, up until now, I was always standing for the people who know how to, like, people after my work, they know how to engage in intimacy with consciousness. But after this last 2 years, I see how actually that's not the goal. The goal is
To shift the world.
to shift the world and to stand in our will and in our power, really.
Yeah. Thank you
But
so much for this vision. This is beautiful.
yeah, to stand in our will and power, integrated with our heart and with our soul and with our sexuality. Yeah, so I feel that.
And may it be. May your work and may your vision take a hold. And that sounds like the kind of world that I would love to live in. And I know that it's the kind of world that many, many, many people would love to live in. And I know that we collectively are moving there. I have no doubt that the future is positive. It's inevitable.
It's inevitable. It's coming.
It's coming. Thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you so much for the time today. Thank you for the transmission of your beautiful wisdom and the journey that you've walked to get here so deeply and so solemnly and so steadfastly, and never quitting to stand as the woman before me today, because I don't even have to know you to know that it's been a journey of many ups and many downs and many choices to keep going, because I can feel it in you, I can see it in your work, and most importantly, the fact that you've arrived at this conclusion of consciousness shifting and to shift the axis of the world into this new sphere, that's because you've done the work to be here. And so I salute you, and I am in such reverence for you. So thank you, because you are, even if you do nothing else in the work that you want to bring forth in the world. Like, just you being here on this planet is what we need. So thank you so much for choosing, in addition to just being here, doing so much and sharing so much and giving so much. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kait. And I'm grateful for you inviting me to your podcast. I can also see that
You're welcome.
take to see one.
Just sometimes.
Thank you. And yes, I hope we stay in touch.